Hey, welcome to another Naruto Gaming video. Today I decided to kind of go over the new spoilers for the champions, the Kamigawa Neon Destiny. Some of them were spoiled overnight, it looks like. And just kind of talk about the new cards. And the thing that I'm most excited about returning is the ninjutsu mechanic. And if we look up here under Ninja the Deep Hours to actually see what the mechanic is, it's ninjutsu cost, and then you return unblocked attacking creature to your hand, and then you put this card onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So basically allows you to switch after blocks. You can do it, I think you can do it before blocks. So that could be something with this card here, the Nizumi Prowler, that's possible as well. Another attacking creature, and then before blocks this comes into play. I think that's the purpose of having Death Touch and Lifelink there. And the other, I mean, some of these are already spoiled before. The Satoru Umezawa. I don't know if this card is going to be any good or not. Each creature in your hand has ninjutsu. Now, in context of standard, this is not playable, I don't think. Even though you get to draw a card basically for every ninjutsu activation. And then the activation cost is 4 mana. So this guy, and then so you would need a 2 mana creature basically. So what you would do is you could curve out a 2 mana creature into this guy, and then the next turn you attack with a 2 mana creature, and then you have a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana creature that would cost you 4 to get into play. While reducing the cost can have its benefits, taking advantage of this mechanic, it will allow you to put creatures into play for cheap. But ideally what you would want is something like Ninja of the Deep Hours, where you put it into play and you can get an effect if it's not blocked. So for that, I don't think it's playable. To cheat big creatures into play, I think could be playable. Likely just eat a removal spell the turn that it's played, if your opponent has one. That's always a caveat with any creature. And typically what I look for initially now, but decks based on synergy and stuff like that. I mean, we could get a 12 mana, 15/15 that, gives your opponent 10 poison counters when it hits. In that case, this guy would probably be pretty good in that instance, but I don't think we're going to get something like that. And given that the colors that it's in the rogue colors already. So if you look at standard right now, standard is one of the decks that needs a little bit of a boost, I think, is the rogues. And I think the ninjutsu mechanic is going to help that deck a lot. Time will tell on this one. I'm sure it'll be tested out right away, and we'll see exactly where it ends up. Now I think this Planeswalker, for blue-black Planeswalker, is likely going to be played quite a bit. If there's a deck for Kaito Shizuki. Just because, first off, when you play it, you can activate it and then protect itself because it phases out. At least the first time. Or is it? Yeah, if it entered the battlefield this turn, right. So it'll phase out the first time. So you get to draw a card, discard a card unless you attacked. Totally fine. +1 ability. Drawing a card with turn comes down. You can create a ninja token, which is great. You can create an attacker or blocker if you need to. It also can't be blocked. So goes well with the ninjutsu mechanic. And whenever a creature you control deals combat, search your library for a blue or black creature card and put it on the battlefield. So the minus ability allows you to basically cheat a big creature into play. Most Planeswalkers don't reach ultimate status. They usually either get killed or they can't defend themselves well enough. Now, this one will defend itself. I'm not sure I don't think when a permanent phases out that it actually re-enters the battlefield. I'd have to check that. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. So the first turn it'll come down, it'll phase out. So it does protect itself for a single turn, so you can basically get 2 cards out of this one. So it's kind of for a blue-black deck, it's kind of a divination plus, so it allows you to draw 2 cards, basically at sorcery speed. You will discard if you didn't attack, but that's fine. I think, you know, having even a looter ability on a planeswalker, I think is still really good. And being able to create a ninja token as well. So at the very worst, you're going to draw 2 cards off of it. And at the best, you'll draw 2 cards and make it 2 tokens out of it as well, you know. And maybe at some point ultimate, but I highly doubt this will get ultimated very often. And then we have Hidetsugu. Yeah, Hidetsugu. He of the Second Right, or I think Flame of the Second Right, whatever it was called. I don't know if this creature is going to see play either. It's possible. You get to sacrifice creature and scry 2. Scrying 2 is almost the equivalent of drawing a card, I think. I think that's what the math works out to. Something like that. Exile top card of the library. You can play it. An exile a non-land card. He deals damage equal to the exile card's value to any target. So you don't have to actually play the card. You just exile it. So it gives you basically a 3 mana pinger. So you can deal X amount of damage based on your mana cost. So ideally in a typical standard deck, the most you're probably going to do is 5, maybe 6. And likely in between the 2 and 3 range for the most part. But then you can also play it if it's a non-land card. So I think it's pretty good in that. And the one big thing that I will say about this card, it's not typical to standard right now, is you can activate it at any time. And for some reason that seems to become a big mechanic right now, where you can only activate certain abilities as a sorcery. And this one doesn't do that. So there could be some benefit there as well. I think the way they've sort of changed standard right now, or in the last little while, is to make those abilities a little bit more meaningful. But we'll see where this creature goes. I mean, again, I'm only just as an individual card. I don't know about combos. I don't know about synergy. I don't really talk about that. I just look at the card individually and say, this is playable, this is not playable. This is could see play possibly as a 4 mana 4/4. I think there's better cards that impact the game at 4 mana in black right now. I think you're competing with a lot. I think same with the Satoru Umezawa. I think you're competing with a lot of other cards. Now, in blue-black, not so much. So I think it's possible. Now, you're almost competing directly with the Planeswalker. So there's some, overlap there as well. All right, so then we have the red creature, the Dragon Spirit. And so at Sushi, the Blazing Sky, Flying Tramples, 4 mana 4/4. Just on those stats alone, that's playable, I think. And then when it dies, you can exile the top 2 cards. Now, the big caveat with this one is with Hidetsugu, you can only play it this turn. With this one, when it dies, you have until the end of your next turn to play it. So, I mean, if it dies on your opponent's turn, then you can cast the spells, whatever. You can play the 2 cards that it exiles on your next turn. Or if it dies on your turn, you can play it on your opponent's turn and then on your turn as well. So it's got some value there. It's basically, if it dies, you draw 2 cards, essentially. It could work out to be a loot too, right? It could be just draw 2 and then you may not be able to play one of them. Normally, that's not the case. Usually you can play both cards because sometimes it'll be a land and a spell, and then, maybe you might not have enough mana. It's hard to say. But I think this is what I was talking about in a previous video where I said red needs some help. And I think this is some help for sure. I think the cards at 4 mana for red, there's not a lot in terms of like aggro decks or anything like that. And I think this kind of fills that void a little bit. And then the other option is you can create 3 treasure tokens, which again is still very good. So basically on turn 4, you play this, and then if it gets killed, the next turn you can play something for 7 mana. So that's quite powerful, or multiple spells in the next turn or whatever. So either way, either one is quite powerful. So I see this being a standard player for sure. Now this is one of the new ones that was spoiled, the Cammy War. It has a saga. It costs, I'm not sure why they choose to add this 1 extra mana here. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's 5 mana. It's already 1 of each different color. And then you have to add this one. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because there's certain cards that exist that allow you to tap for that specific amount of mana. I'm not sure, like in other formats and stuff. I don't know. I don't even know if necessarily if this is even a real card. For sure, it seems to be. It looks like it was somebody glued this onto a card or something and then took a picture of it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So let's assume that it's real. Already, like right off the bat, 6 mana, 1 of each color. Not like there's a few cards. I think there's 1 or 2 cards maybe in standard right now. I think Tiamat and the green creature that flips into enchantment are 5 mana, and they're not playable. The mana base right now in standard doesn't support playing a 5 mana card. So this might be cool in, maybe a commander deck, or like just from the cast cost. I'm not even reading the text or anything like that, but just right off the bat, for this casting cost, it would have to be very, 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 very powerful to be able to be played in standard. It's the only way cards like this ever get played. Because you have to sacrifice your mana base, and then the payoff has to be greater than the sacrifices you made to get up to that point. So by turn 6, you would need to have a really strong payoff. So first off, you have exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So for 6 mana, you get to exile 1 non-land permanent and opponent controls. Okay, that's fair. That's not a bad ability. I don't know if it's a 6 mana ability. So just based on that, not worth it. But you got to take the whole card as is. Then the second, so on your next turn, you're going to get return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then each opponent discards a card. This is interesting because and if it was just the first part, it would not be playable at all with the discard. So basically, if your opponent has no cards in hand, you play this, bounce something, and then they have to get rid of it. They discard it. So that's okay. It's not the best. It does allow you to replay something. It doesn't allow you to like basically bounce this back to your hand and then replay it again. So it doesn't work that way. It's other target non-land permanent. So I guess if you had 2 of them, you could return, target each other with it, but that'll never happen. So at best, it's a removal spell for a particular non-land permanent that your opponent has. So maybe a planeswalker or something if they have no cards in hand. You play this, then bounce the planeswalker or big threat or something, and then they discard it. Given the current standard format right now, where threat doesn't come from one specific permanent, or like a planeswalker or something like that, I don't think this second ability also doesn't justify the 6 mana. Simply because returning, basically let's go best case scenario, and you return a permanent, and then they discard that whatever that permanent is. It's basically 2 removal spells. Okay, that's fine, but you're still talking 6 mana, and you're talking 2 permanents. And if you play this against, if you play this card, your deck's gonna have to be built around this card, just because of the casting costs. Again, I don't know why this one was tacked on there. It could have probably just been 5 mana and probably been fine. But once you push it to 6 mana, I think you push it out of the realm of playability. At least as far as standard goes. And most of the videos that I do is just focused on standard. Okay, so then you get to the third one. Then you exile and return to the battlefield transformed. So if you go to see what it actually looks like, it turns into Okagachi Made Manifest. So it has all colors. It has flying. It's a 6/6 flying trample. Okay, so 6 mana, 6/6 flying trample. Again, in a perfect world, that's playable for sure. 6 mana where 5 are each color. I don't know if that's playable. Okay, let's go to the next ability. Whenever Okagachi Made Manifest attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in my graveyard. I return it to my hand, so essentially drawing a card. And it gets +X/+0, where X is the mana value of that card. If I suppose I played a Grixis Magma Opus deck in Standard recently. The video's up on the channel if you want to take a look at that. Potentially makes a lot of treasure tokens where, because treasure token you can stack it, make it any color. I could see it being possible. I could see it being, potentially, 3-color deck like a Sultai, Jeskai deck or something like that. And then you basically play the 2 other manas from treasure, or maybe there's some nice multicolor land or something like that. I could see this being played if something like Reflecting Pool gets printed or reprinted in the set. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But something with like the Magma Opus deck, I could see this working because it is a dragon. And if you have a look at that deck list, it plays the Magma Opus, which allows you to discard it for a treasure card. It also plays the 4-mana sorcery that deals damage equal to the card that you exile from your graveyard. So if you exile like Magma Opus, it deals 8 damage to all non-dragons. So potentially in something like that, I could see it being played and get to the point where this can take over the game. So the last ability is the one that will push it over the top. Because I think the final ability is very, very strong. Does it get there on the first, playing 6 mana, given mana that it's given that you can cast this on turn 6 in any deck, what other spells in whatever deck you're playing, whether it's like mono black or the blue red deck, whatever it happens to be, at 6 mana, what would this replace in those specific decks? Obviously, it's not going to be played in mono white aggro. It's not going to be played in mono red aggro. It's not going to be played in vampires. This could be it could be a finisher. So it's possible, like maybe in a Sultai deck. But then even in those decks, even in any deck that's playing black would have access to Professor Onyx as a 6-mana spell. It's not as powerful as this, I don't think. But then again, you have to weigh the ability to cast it versus, is this more powerful than Professor Onyx? Yes. Is it a lot more harder to cast this than Professor Onyx in a black deck? Well, yes. So you'd have to weigh your options in that. There have to be something that either produced a good quantity of treasure tokens, or there have to be a good land or a cycle of lands that allow you to cast the spell. I already went over the Nizumi Prowler, Ninjutsu. I think it's a good mechanic. I'm glad to see it returning. And then we have the Chukai Trainee. Whenever it blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Now, I'm not 100% sure. But I thought Bushido, yeah. So it's basically Bushido. Blocks or becomes blocked, gets +1/+1. Not sure why they removed Bushido from this, and instead of having it as a keyword like they did before. It's basically Bushido 2. When this creature becomes blocked, blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2. Unless they plan on, instead of a pump, it's like gains Death Touch, or it gains Lifelink, or something like that. And then we have this one, which I believe is Discharge Flame. And it deals X damage to target creature or player. Okay, it's an instant, so it's an instant fireball, which is good. Something we don't have in the format. Although it doesn't target a player, again, that's fine. If you control a modified creature as you cast the spell, it deals X +2 damage instead. So it's a shock if you have a creature that's equipped, enchanted, or has counters on it. All fine. It's an added bonus to this card specifically. I don't know if potentially maybe equipped or maybe have counters on it. It's not going to be played in a deck for the second ability. It's because it's +2. It's possible that there's something that wants this, to have the ability to, it's just a shock to a creature or planeswalker. But it'll be played for the X rather than the second part. I don't know if any of these cards, anything that we'd be playing equipped, enchanted, or has counters on it will be played in standard. I don't think it will need that, because typically decks that play a lot of creatures with a lot of enchantments, they don't really look for removal spells. They're basically looking for defensive spells. Although this gives us the ability to have basically a cycle of this type of card where, you know, you can, you know, counter spell or something like that with the exact same effect. In that case, that would be much more powerful than this. Good card, playable. It's not the best thing in the world, but I think it's fine. I think it's playable for sure. It's the fact that it's instant makes it playable. And then we have another Dragon Spirit, Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa. And this one, it enters the battlefield. Another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as you control. So it basically makes another permanent indestructible as long as you control Kyodai. Has flash and flying, so 4 mana, flash, flying, and it's a 3/3. And then 5 color, it gets +5/+5. So here we have another indication. You have a dragon, you have the 5 color mechanic on it. So that hopefully means that there will be something that allows you to do this a little bit easier than treasure tokens. We may see if, you know, maybe Tiamat starts to become playable as a 5 color card. You know, maybe there's a card that you can exile a card in your hand and then it taps for whatever color, as many colors as that card was, or something like that. That's very possible. But again, we see a small little theme of these 5 color mana symbols on dragons. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe we see something like Crystal Caverns or something return. And then we have Nakanuma, Abandoned Mine, Legendary Land. These spoilers have been out for a little while. Channel, you can discard it, and you mill 3 cards, and then return a creature planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. This costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So it could cost just 1 black mana, which I think at that point it's very, very good. Doesn't come into play tapped. Again, great. You know, the original Kamigawa block was noted for its lands. Unfortunately, most of the lands that were playable were all in blue. So now we have one, at least that's in black, that looks to be playable. Basically, you would discard this. You mill 3 cards, and then basically it's a Raise Dead. Brain fart, sorry. It could just be a brain dead. Yeah, basically. It could be a Raise Dead spell if you have a couple of legendary creatures. But for the most part, it's probably always going to be 4 mana. It might be 3. You know, maybe given the best case situation, it might be 3. So even at 4 mana, the fact that you can doesn't seem to say that you can't discard this during your turn. So again, at the end of your opponent's turn, you can return a creature, play it the next turn. I think even 4 mana, I think that's fine. And the fact that it's a land also makes it playable. And then we have the awesome basic lands. I think they said something about these being not the actual lands. These are going to be like the chase basic lands. So like for example, in Innistrad and stuff like that, each pack that you open, at least for a set booster, you got one of the special like black and white lands. And I think with these, they're going to be rarer than that. I think out of those, you're going to have like 1 in 3 be one of the special, or one of these special lands. I think these are the best ones printed so far. I do like the black and white Innistrad, but these ones are just, I think they're just gorgeous. I think these are the best ones that they've probably done. So I think that's good. We'll see some, we'll see these on Arena for sure, and in some bundle or another, I'm sure. But again, I look forward to it. Even just collecting them for paper Magic as well. I think they're just going to be a sweet basic land. And then we just have the showcase frames. Most of the stuff I don't really care about, at least not for Arena, which is what I mostly play now. I don't really care. They're neat. They're cool, especially for collectors and stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. So that'll do it for this video. I just wanted to kind of go over. There's not very many spoilers. I am pretty excited for this set. I think it's going to change standard a little bit. I don't know how much. Sets don't change. As a set release, it doesn't change standard until basically all the sets are out for basically for the year, for the season, kind of. And then you start seeing more and more, although I think Arena has quickened that pace at the point where we get to, finding the best decks and all that kind of stuff. But I look forward to Neon Destiny. I think it's going to be fantastic for standard. I think it's going to be fantastic for Arena. Again, I don't play Alchemy. Do whatever you want with that. I don't, there will be another Alchemy set here that comes out, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. When Neon Destiny gets released and we get the Alchemy set for it, that they don't also change cards currently in Alchemy. If they don't, that'll be great, and then maybe I'll get into the format. If they do decide to change things, that will be another indication that basically every time an Alchemy set is released, there's a high likelihood of cards being changed that were already printed or that are already done, and then you've already spent your wild cards on. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again here. It is a risk with Alchemy. It is a risk because there's a high likelihood that the cards in that format are going to change, and they're going to change often. Especially like the draft cards and stuff like that. There's nothing saying that they can't change any of the cards that you can draft out of it at any given time. So take that with a grain of salt. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to make something a little bit different today. And just kind of give my thoughts on Neon Destiny. Again, I'm excited for the set. I think it's going to be really fun. You get, people just get sick and tired of playing like blue-red. And then, like the other day, I think on Magic Online, there was a tournament that was won by, I think it was a black-white deck that was playing a bunch of black-white creatures and then like a few planeswalkers and some removal. And it basically got first place. So people are starting to not play certain decks, whatever it happens to be. Whether it's because people are playing more removal, so it pushes mono white out. So if people are playing like 4, Meathook Massacre and, any of the mass removal spells like Path of Peril. So people playing like stuff like Path of Peril, then mono white becomes less and less a part of the format. Still heavily played on Arena, heavily played on Arena. And I don't blame people. People basically will build one deck out for standard, and then they won't change it for the entirety of standard because that's your maximum efficiency for standard. So you basically make one deck, stick to it, and then you play it as much as possible. So you collect your gold and your gems and all that kind of stuff, and you don't need to change it very much. Maybe a card here or there. So I don't blame people for that because it's not even a question of blaming somebody or not. It's just a matter of economics, right? They don't want to, if they want maximum efficiency with Arena to keep playing standard every year or either every rotation or every year or whatever it is, you want to spend the least amount of wild cards and get the most amount of benefit from it. I think that's somewhat why they introduced Alchemy, because it kind of forces people to constantly switch out cards. But anyway, again, that'll do it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, tried something different, and I'll see you later.